Oh, you beautiful architects of chaos, you walking contradictions, you silent storms that nobody saw coming. Welcome back to the moment everything changes. Because right now, as you're watching this, there's a file being passed around, a document, a leaked conversation, a thread of messages that was never supposed to see daylight. And in that file, your name is mentioned 17 times. 17. Not as a victim, not as a cautionary tale, not as someone they pitied. No, no, no. Your name appears as the one variable they couldn't control, the outcome they never predicted, the result that broke their entire formula. They thought they had you figured out, documented, archived, but what just leaked? What's circulating right now in rooms you'll never see? It's the confession they swore they'd take to the grave. Let me paint you the picture, because this isn't speculation anymore. This is confirmed, verified, stamped with the kind of truth that makes people delete their search history. For the last 3 years, there's been a group. Not a conspiracy, not some secret society nonsense, but a collection of people, former friends, old colleagues, bitter exes, jealous observers, people who claimed they moved on. And they've been keeping records on you. Every post you made, every move you took, every silent month you disappeared, they logged it. They had a shared document. Timestamps, screenshots, analysis. Everything they did, they were trying to decode you like you were some ancient text they needed to decipher before you became too powerful to contain. And here's the part that's going to make your blood run cold and your ego smile at the same time. They failed. Every single hypothesis they had about you, every prediction they made, every moment they thought you'd break, collapse, beg, or crawl back. Wrong, dead wrong, catastrophically wrong. And now the leak, the full document, it's out there. Not publicly, not yet, but it's moving through circles. Whispered about in private chats, shared with shaking hands. Because what it reveals isn't your weakness, it's their obsession. What it exposes isn't your downfall, it's their inability to move on. What it proves beyond any doubt is that while you were healing, evolving, and becoming untouchable, they were stuck in a time loop, refreshing your life like it was the only channel that still had signal. And the funniest part? The part that's got them scrambling to cover their tracks? They admitted in writing that you were right all along. But let's talk about what's actually in this file, because the details are absolutely unhinged. Page 1 starts with a timeline, your timeline, mapped out like you're some kind of historical event they needed to study. January 2022, they went silent. March 2022, new profile picture, possible rebrand. July 2022, no activity, suspected breakdown. They weren't just watching, they were narrating your life, like sports commentators calling a game you didn't know you were playing. And the comments, these little notes in the margins, they're dripping with fear, disguised as concern. Notice how they never respond anymore. They never say no. That's not healing, that's detachment. Detachment means they're planning something. Planning something? You were planning breakfast and trying to remember to water your plants, but in their minds, you were orchestrating some master plan. But here's where it gets truly disturbing and also deeply, darkly hilarious. They started rating your moves, giving you scores, like you're in some twisted competition. Silent strategy, 9 out of 10. Didn't take the bait during the holidays? 10 out of 10. Avoided all mutual events, perfect execution. They were grading you. and you were acing tests you didn't even know existed. Every time you chose yourself, every boundary you set, every person you cut off without explanation, they documented it like it was evidence. Evidence of what? That you'd become the one thing they feared most. Someone who didn't need them, didn't need closure, didn't need the last word, didn't need anything from the people who thought they were essential to your story. And then there's section 4, and this is where the file goes from creepy to absolutely cinema-worthy. They tried to predict your next move. They had theories, multiple people weighing in with their analysis. They're gonna come back angrier, wrong. They're gonna expose everything publicly, wrong. They're gonna reach out when they're desperate, catastrophically wrong. What you did instead, and this is what has them losing sleep, is you thrived in a way they couldn't pattern. You didn't follow the script of the hurt, the betrayed, the abandoned. You became something they had no reference for. Someone who transformed pain into fuel so efficiently that you left no emotional breadcrumbs for them to follow. You went dark, and instead of fading, you evolved. One of them wrote, and this line is burned into my brain now, "It's like they died and came back as someone we can't reach." And another responded, "No, it's worse. They're not unreachable. They just don't see us as worth reaching anymore." That sentence, right there, that's the core of the entire leak. They finally understood, in writing, with timestamps to prove it, that their relevance in your life didn't just decrease, it evaporated. You didn't block them out of anger, you forgot them out of growth. And that realization, that admission that they mattered so little, you didn't even consider them enemies anymore. That broke something in them they'll never get back. Now we need to address the elephant in the leaked document, because this part is where it shifts from strange to genuinely shocking. There's an entire section, pages 7 through 12, dedicated to trying to figure out your source of power. Not your job, not your appearance, not your circumstances, your energy. They couldn't understand how someone who went through what you went through, someone they watched crumble, could come back radiating the kind of presence that makes rooms go quiet. They had theories. And I'm not making this up. They actually brainstormed like amateur psychologists trying to crack a case. Maybe they're faking it. Maybe it's all performance. That was theory 1, and it got dismissed immediately by someone who wrote, "Nobody performs that consistently. Nobody fakes that level of peace." Theory 2, they found someone new, someone giving them confidence. Also wrong, because another person chimed in with, "I checked. They're alone, completely alone, and somehow that makes them scarier." Scarier? Yes, because people who find power in solitude, who don't need external validation, who build their kingdom in silence, those people become untouchable. And you became exactly that. You stopped posting for approval. You stopped moving for applause. You stopped existing for witnesses. And in that isolation, you became the most dangerous version of yourself. But here's the part that's going to make you smile, because it should. Theory 3, the one they seemed to settle on with the most agreement, was this. They've completely detached from needing us to understand them. That's not healing, that's ascension. Ascension, they used that word. Not recovery, not moving on, but ascension. They recognized, in their own words, that you didn't just level up, you left the entire game they were playing. You weren't competing for their attention anymore. You weren't fighting for a seat at tables you'd already outgrown. You weren't trying to prove anything to people whose opinions stopped mattering the moment they showed you who they really were. And then someone wrote something that I need you to hear because it's the ultimate confession. The thing they'll never say to your face but admit it in this file. I think we lost something irreplaceable when we lost them. Not because of what they gave us, but because of what being around them made us feel. Like we were better than we actually are. Read that again. You made people feel elevated just by proximity. And when you left, when you withdrew your presence, your energy, your light, they felt the absence like a physical wound. They didn't just miss you, they missed who they thought they were when you were still around. So the file leaks, and now there's a scramble. Messages are being deleted, people are having emergency calls. There's genuine panic in these circles because they know what this means. It means their obsession is visible now. It means the person they claimed to have moved past, the one they said didn't matter anymore, has been living rent-free in their heads for years. And worse, it means you're gonna find out. Some of them hope you never see it, because the embarrassment would be nuclear. Others are terrified you will see it, and realize just how much power you've had this entire time. Because here's what the leak really reveals. Beyond the timelines and theories and desperate attempts to understand you, it reveals that you've been the main character in their story, while they barely registered as background noise in yours. They've been watching you like you're a series they can't stop binge watching, waiting for the next episode, analyzing every frame, predicting every plot twist. Meanwhile, you've been living your life, healing your wounds, building your peace, completely unaware that you've had an audience studying your every move like it's scripture. That power imbalance, that complete role reversal, it's the ultimate poetic ending to their narrative. And now they're asking each other, what do we do if they find out? As if there's some strategy to salvage this, some way to spin it that doesn't make them look completely unhinged. But there's no spin here, no clever explanation that makes years of obsessive documentation seem normal or justified. They got caught doing exactly what they accused you of. Staying stuck in the past, unable to move forward, clinging to someone who cut them off cleanly and never looked back. The irony's so thick you could build a fortress with it. One message near the end of the file, and this one's recent, from 2 weeks ago, just says this: I think we need to accept that we're never going to understand what happened. They became something we don't have language for, and maybe that's the point. That sentence right there, that's surrender. That's the white flag. That's them finally admitting that all their analysis, all their theories, all their attempts to decode your transformation were pointless. Because you were never trying to be understood by them in the first place. Let's talk about what this means for you right now, in this moment, because this isn't just about them anymore. This is about you realizing something that's going to change how you see your entire journey. Every moment you thought you were alone, invisible, forgotten, you weren't. You were being watched with the kind of intensity usually reserved for phenomena people can't explain. Every choice you made in silence, every boundary you set without announcement, every time you chose yourself over their opinion, documented, analyzed, discussed, debated. You were never as alone as you felt. And that's both haunting and empowering. Because it means your growth, your transformation, your evolution from who you were into who you've become, it happened under surveillance. And you still pulled it off flawlessly. You still became untouchable despite having eyes on you the entire time. Think about that. They had every advantage, every opportunity to understand your patterns, predict your moves, find your weakness, and they came up with nothing except respect disguised as fear and obsession disguised as curiosity. This is where you need to pause and let this sink in, because most people never get this kind of confirmation. Most people heal in private and never know if anyone noticed. But you have proof. Written, time-stamped, detailed proof that your transformation was so significant, so undeniable, so powerful, that it demanded attention from the very people who wanted to see you fail. They couldn't look away. Not because you were performing, but because you were becoming. And becoming is always more magnetic than performing. The power shift here is absolute, irreversible, permanent. They went from observers thinking they had the upper hand to subjects realizing they never had control. You went from someone they thought they could figure out to someone they now reference as unexplainable. The file that was supposed to be their insurance policy, their way of maintaining some sense of control, became the document that proves they never had any. Every page is evidence not of your weakness, but of their inability to let go. Now here's what happens next, and this is where your story gets interesting in ways it never has before. You don't need to respond. You don't need to address them. You don't need to acknowledge the file exists or that you know about their obsession, because the most powerful thing you can do right now is absolutely nothing. Let them sit in the discomfort of knowing their secret is out. Let them wonder if you've seen it. Let them spiral trying to guess your next move while you're out here living a life they're not invited to witness anymore. Your silence, the same silence they documented and tried to decode, that's your response. That's your victory speech. That's your microphone drop moment without saying a single word. Because they've spent years trying to get your attention, trying to provoke a reaction, hoping you'd break the silence and give them something, anything, to work with. And if you respond now, if you acknowledge them now, you give them exactly what they've been craving. Don't let the file speak for itself. Let their own words expose them. Let their obsession be the evidence of your impact. Here's the truth. They'll never admit publicly, but confessed in private documents. You became the standard they measure everyone against now. Every new person they meet, every relationship they try to build, every connection they attempt to make, somewhere in the back of their mind, there's a comparison happening. And nobody measures up. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You didn't curate a fake version of strength. You built actual resilience. You didn't perform healing. You actually healed. And that authenticity, that genuine transformation, it can't be replicated or replaced. They're looking for you in other people and coming up empty because you're not a type, you're not a category, you're not something that can be found again. You're a once-in-a-lifetime encounter that they fumbled, and now they're stuck with the knowledge that they had access to something rare and they destroyed it through their own ignorance. The regret they feel, the one that shows up in the file between the lines, that's gonna follow them longer than any revenge you could have planned. So you're standing here now with information that changes everything and also changes nothing. Because here's the secret. You were always this powerful. The file didn't make you powerful. It just confirmed what you already knew in your bones. That you're unforgettable, that you're irreplaceable, that walking away from people who didn't value you wasn't a loss. It was a liberation that they still haven't recovered from. The leak is just evidence of what your intuition was screaming at you all along. You didn't need their validation then, and you definitely don't need their obsessive documentation now. But what you can take from this, What you should absorb into your cells and carry forward is the confirmation that your impact is permanent. You don't have to try to be memorable. You don't have to fight to be significant. You already are. The people who encounter you, who experience your energy, your presence, your truth, they don't forget. They can't. You're the bookmark in their life story that they return to when they're trying to remember what authenticity looks like. Moving forward, you carry this different now. Not arrogant, but certain. Not loud, but unshakable. You know what you already suspected, that your absence created more impact than most people's presence ever will. That your silence taught lessons their words never could. That your boundary setting became a masterclass they're still trying to decode. You're not just healed, you're the blueprint. And blueprints don't need approval. They just need to exist, and everything else follows. The file leaked. The truth came out. Their obsession became public record among their circles. And you keep walking forward. Keep building your life. Keep choosing yourself with the same ruthless clarity that made them write those documents in the first place. Because the greatest revenge isn't exposing them. It's continuing to thrive so undeniably that even years from now, they'll still be talking about you while you've long forgotten they exist. Let me leave you with this, because it's the core of everything that just got revealed. They didn't document you because you were broken. They documented you because you were breaking free. Every entry in that file, every timestamp, every note about your behavior, it was them watching someone escape a cage they didn't even know existed. You weren't just healing from them, you were healing from everything their existence represented. False connections, performative love, conditional acceptance, shallow loyalty. And as you healed, as you got quieter and more selective and more boundaried, they panicked. Because people who are used to accessing you, to having you available, to knowing they can pull you back in with the right words or timing, they don't know what to do when the door closes permanently. So they watched, they studied, they tried to find the crack, the vulnerability, the moment you'd come back. And that moment never came. You never came back, not because you were bitter or angry, but because you outgrew the entire ecosystem they existed in. The full story leaked, and the full story is this: you're the one who got away, not in a romantic sense, but in an existential one. You're the person who saw through the illusion, rejected the performance, chose authenticity over comfort, and walked away without looking back. You're the one they'll tell stories about when they're trying to explain to someone new why they have trust issues, why they're emotionally unavailable, why they sabotage connections. You're the ghost in their narrative, the one that got away, the standard they'll never reach again. So yeah, the full story leaked. Their obsession is documented. Their inability to move on is time-stamped. And you're out here living proof that the best way to win is to stop playing their games entirely. You're the evidence that transformation is possible. You're the reminder that some people really do become unreachable, not through cruelty, but through growth. The file leaked, and it told the world exactly what you already knew: that you're unforgettable, irreplaceable, and completely, utterly free. Now go live your life, knowing that while they're still writing about your past, you're busy creating a future they'll never be part of. And that right there is the ultimate ending.